Hi guys, it's Mrs. Nolan, and I am going to talk to you today. In fact, all your counselors are going to talk to you today about a subject that is very important. It's something that we are required to discuss with you every year. So I want to thank you in advance for giving us your attention, and we will go ahead and get started. All right. So what we need to talk about today is child abuse. We're going to talk about the different kinds of child abuse and what to do if you or someone that you know is in a situation that is dangerous. So a few things to know before we get started. If you have a question or a comment, please save those for a one-on-one conversation with your teacher or with a counselor. Some of the things that we may need to talk about are pretty sensitive and not something that a whole class needs to hear about. So we want to make sure that we respect your privacy and we give you a chance to talk about those things in a confidential situation with either your teacher or a counselor or another caring adult here in our building. There are different levels of abuse, and it is not your responsibility to determine what level of abuse is occurring. That's a job for an adult. So if you think that there's something going on that just isn't quite right, but you're not sure if it's serious enough to make a report, we want you to report it. We will determine what needs to happen next or if there are next steps that need to happen, but we don't want you to feel like whatever you have to say is not important enough to be heard by someone. Reporting is important to keep you safe. Your teachers and counselors are here to help you. We are trained to contact the right people and get you the help that you need. But for us to do that, we need you to bring your information to us. We're here to help you. All right, because we're in kind of a unique situation right now where a lot of our students are at home and not here in person with us, we wanted to share a couple resources with those students especially and with anybody who may need to use these. If you are in need of immediate help or someone to talk to, and you're not here in the building where you can get to us or to one of your teachers, we want you to know that Text for Help is a resource that you can use. So hang on to this information. You can send a text and they'll connect you to a counselor or somebody who can talk with you about what's going on. Another resource to keep in mind is this Safe to Talk texting response service. You can text them, and again, they will put you in touch with the right resources or a crisis intervention specialist who can talk you through what's going on and connect you with the help that you need. So we want you to hold on to those things, keep those things in mind. If you're ever in a situation where you need somebody right away and one of us isn't available. And of course, you know too that if you're in a really urgent situation, you can dial 911 for help immediately. You understand that 911 is for a true emergency situation. And if you're not in a true emergency situation, maybe one of those other options might be a better thing to use. So we're going to talk a little bit about the definition of child abuse. Child abuse is the physical maltreatment or sexual molestation of a child. What is the word maltreatment? What does that mean? Well, many states recognize 4 major types of maltreatment in their definitions, and those are neglect, physical abuse, emotional abuse, and sexual abuse. And at this time, before we cover those different types of maltreatment and we talk some more about what neglect looks like, what physical abuse looks like, emotional abuse and sexual abuse, we're going to talk about all of those things and kind of understand those things better. But before we do that, we're going to pause for a question, and then you're going to move on with one of our other counselors.
Hi, it's Mrs. Knight, and I'm going to go and talk about the types of abuse. I know this is kind of some touchy subjects and stuff that maybe we're not comfortable talking about, but it's really, really needed. So, the different types of abuses you can see are neglect, physical abuse, emotional abuse, and sexual abuse, or what's called molestation as well. So, neglect. Neglect is when a child's basic needs, including like not being taken to the doctor when they needed to, not having clean clothes or enough clothes. Maybe they are just left at home with no adult supervision. Maybe their housing is there's a lot of people in one house, too many, and maybe there's just not adequate sleeping areas. That's neglect. Sometimes there are times when there are certain things that happen, but when it continues over and over again, there is definitely some worry for neglect. So, physical abuse. This is probably the one that everyone notices. This is when somebody, adult, somebody, maybe even another child, um, could be using force against that child, and they cause harm to them. And it affects them a lot. It can be hitting, it can be biting, kicking, shaking, strangling. It might even be burning them, poisoning, or suffocating them. Obviously, a lot of physical abuse is used in a home as a form of punishing the child, uh, but it's not okay and it's something that needs to be reported. Emotional abuse. This can be as bad as physical abuse, it can be name calling, it can be insulting somebody. There's a threatening to hurt them, like a threatening violence, like I'm going to hurt you, I'm going to kill you, I'm going to hit you. Even that threatening of physical abuse is not okay. Allowing the children to witness maybe physically or emotionally abusing someone else. So maybe they're having to witness abuse of their mother or another brother or sister that's in the home. That's emotional abuse. There may be also emotional abuse when a parent refuses to help them. They don't show them any guidance, they don't support them, they don't even love them. That is all signs of ways that and a child can be extremely damaged mentally, and they are considered mental abuse, emotional abuse. And the last one, probably the most uncomfortable one to discuss, but obviously a very important one out of the four. Sexual abuse is when a adult or adult older adolescent uses a child for sexual purposes. They engage in sexual activities with that child. Maybe they're revealing private parts to that child, or they're using that child for child pornography, which is taking pictures of them and displaying them in certain places, perhaps on the internet. So, those are the four different types of abuses. All of them can be very uncomfortable to share, to talk about, but they're so important because we need to make sure that all of our students here at Sunnyside are kept safe. You're going to see a video coming up here that deals with a little bit of that sexual abuse and reporting it. Remember, reporting it is the best thing, even if it's your best friend or it's about your brother. You got to let people know. So I'm going to show you that video.
I used to know this guy. He was my mom's friend. And he was like kind of nice. He gave me candies and let me play his phone a lot. And my mom thought he could trust him. But one day, my mom had to go to the store to get barbecue and stuff. And so she had it left with me because I wanted to stay. And so when they left, her girlfriend was going to the shower to take a shower while he watches me. But it was not that good. He locked the doors and everything. and something went terribly bad. He did something to me very bad I did not want to do. I didn't want to tell my mom because he told me to not tell no one. And if I did, he would probably threaten me and hurt my family. So I kept quiet. My mom says, "What's wrong?" I said, "Nothing, it's okay." So then, after days and days, I've been worrying, trying not to tell no one because I was scared. Every school, I could not read, I could not talk that way, and they would be like, "What's wrong?" And I was like, "Oh, it's nothing. It's just that I'm probably tired." Till one day, I told my mom the truth. She was like, "Ah, sweetie, is this true?" And I said, "Yes, I'm scared." And I started crying and crying because I had let it out. It kept bothering me so much, I had to let it out. It was like a big knot, so I had to tie it. When I told my mom, we had to go to the police station. They asked everything what he did. So I did tell them until they told me they would investigate him and that he was denying it. So I went to court then. The court was very scary because I had to look at him and my lawyer. The lawyer asked me questions, but I had to say yes, yes, or not like that. I was very scared. I was shaking and shaking and shaking till I dropped. It was kind of scary, but ever since I did the court, I let it out and it felt good to let it out. It felt like I was not in pain no more. And so I'm putting a bad guy in jail.
After watching that video, you may have a few questions about abuse in general and reporting abuse. And it's important that we go over what to do if abuse is happening. So it's important to remember when we're discussing reporting abuse that there are different levels of abuse. And it's not necessarily a kid's job to decide if the abuse is severe or not. And so ultimately, anytime you are worried about something that's happening to you or something that's happening to somebody else, it's important that you share that information with a trusted adult. So you might ask, why do I have to share with an adult? Sometimes I feel more comfortable talking to my friends. The important reason to share with an adult is because ultimately adults might be aware of specific things that they need to do in case somebody is unsafe. And so if we share with an adult, they can know the best way to help you, while it might be difficult for your friends to understand what's going on. Once again, sometimes we kind of think, well, do I need to report what's going on? And ultimately, the main thing is if something is upsetting you or bothering you or hurting you, it's important to let an adult know in that situation. The adult can definitely help navigate through some of those situations with you to determine whether it needs to be reported or not. But ultimately, if it is bothering you or hurting you or someone else that you're worried about, it's important to let somebody know. So how do I go about reporting something? Is something that might be on your mind. If something is happening or something happens in the future, what do I need to do? And so, as mentioned a few times before, use the people who are adults who you care about and who you trust to help you with these situations. Once you have talked to an adult, whether it's a teacher or a counselor or a parent or somebody who you trust, definitely let them know that it's something important and something that is urgent, which just means something that you need to talk about right away. And so once you can talk to somebody about something urgent and let them know what's going on. If it's an emergency, the easiest way to get a hold of somebody, if you need help immediately and there's not an adult around, you can call 911. But if it's abuse that has happened in the past, sharing with somebody like a counselor or a trusted adult is very important, and they can help you navigate that process. If you need another person to accompany you when you report, make sure that you are being accompanied by another adult to make that report, and not necessarily your friends who might make you feel comfortable. Make sure it's an adult that makes you feel comfortable, who can help you through some of the situations that are going on. Sometimes people are a little bit worried about, when I report it, what's going to happen? And ultimately, depending on the situation, different things happen. And so it's important to know that everyone is here to help and protect you and to make sure you're safe. And so if something's happening that's causing you extra stress or is really bothering you, it's always important to share that with a trusted adult. Once something is shared, and it's kind of navigated through if it needs to be reported or not, then that information could be shared with different people. That people could be police officers, could be social workers, it could be health or safety officials, ultimately people who are just trying to make sure that you're safe. And if your safety is in question, it's important that we do our best to get you help so that you feel safe and secure in what's going on in your life. And so after watching the video and discussing this, it can be a little bit scary and a little bit just confusing to talk about. And that is true, it can be a little bit scary. But ultimately, the goal is to make sure that you are safe and to do whatever we can to make sure you're safe. So by reporting, it can be a difficult, confusing process. There are people here who ultimately want to help at school, and there's people who are in your lives who really care about you and want to make sure that we're doing everything to provide you with the best possible opportunity for yourself in the future. And so it's always important to remember that kind of in this last moment, I may not be there yet, but I'm closer than I was yesterday. Sometimes this stuff is difficult to talk about. And so we're always working at becoming who we are and becoming a better person. And sometimes it takes some time to realize some things that might have happened. That is always us in the counselor's office are always here for you. Myself, Mrs. Knight, and Mrs. Nolan, we will help in whatever way we can. And we hope you guys remember that we're always here for you as long as you're in this building. All right, guys, have a good day.